By the time the J-10 rolled back into Sector 20, the place felt off compared to the last time he'd been through. The last of the daylight was slipping off the upper levels, leaving most of it under artificial light. Nothing about it stood out at a glance. The lighting still flickered in the same uneven rhythm, and the same mix of people stepped on and off, but the movement didn't pass through clean anymore. It slowed in places where it used to flow, bunching just long enough to make people aware of each other. Sid stepped off with the rest and let the push carry him forward before easing out of it, already knowing where he was going to look. The blonde girl was there again, Kella, standing in the same break under the damaged overhead light just off the main path. This time she wasn't alone. Another one stood with her. Lina. Darker hair, a little more edge in how she held herself, watching the platform while the blonde talked into a street link. They were angled slightly away from the main flow.
Yeah, I just got off. Yeah, it's Kella. It ran late again. No, it's fine. I'm gonna grab something quick and head back. I told you that place closes early. You always forget that. No, I'm not staying out. I've got stuff tomorrow.
Sid slowed as he approached, but didn't step directly into their space. Lina noticed him first, her eyes flicking to him and holding just long enough to register recognition before she looked back out across the platform.
Hold on.
Kella followed Lina's line of sight and spotted him.
Yeah, no, I see him. It's probably nothing.
That last line didn't carry much conviction.
I'll call you when I get it.
Kella ended the call and slipped the phone away, her attention shifting fully to Sid now that he had closed the distance. Lina's eyes dropped briefly to the weapon at his side before returning to his face.
You're still here.
Kella nodded.
That usually means something didn't go right.
Lina didn't answer right away. She looked at Kella first, then back at Sid, measuring him.
You should keep moving.
Doesn't look like you are.
We're not in your way.
Didn't say you were.
A small pause settled between them. Lina didn't give him anything more than she had to.
Then don't stand here.
If it turns bad, standing out here like this, you won't even see it coming.
Then it goes bad. We've had a lot of bad luck lately. I don't think it could get any worse.
Sid held there a moment, then tried once more, not pushing, just reading.
You waiting on something?
Lina watched him a second longer than before.
You should handle what you came here for, cowboy.
That was the end of it from her side.
Yeah, okay, Toots. But if you get a chance to move, I'd say, take it.
Don't worry. We will.
Sid let it go. Whatever they were tied into, it wasn't something they were going to explain, and he wasn't going to get anything useful by pressing. He stepped back out of their space and moved toward the interior while they stayed where they were, holding that same ground as the platform moved around them. Back inside the warehouse space off 47, the runway show area Sid had passed through earlier, the presentation had already ended by the time he stepped past it. The lights still burned out front, but the energy had drained out of it, leaving the structure without the performance. Behind the curtain line, the room shifted into something quieter and more deliberate, where tables lined the back floor and cases sat open or half open, while hands moved across them without hesitation. Buyers and handlers spoke in low, direct exchanges, each one focused on function instead of display. Sid studied one prospective buyer, a large-bellied man, the back of whose head looked like a slab of meatloaf with tubes sticking out of it. He was holding a rare Chemlaze pistol in his hands.
Run it again. I want to see how it settles after the charge.
His handler, a slender, vulture-looking man, snatched the weapon back.
It's going to feel exactly the same as it did the first time.
That's what they all do, until they don't.
The handler reset without arguing and cycled the weapon again. It emitted an energized whining sound while Sid moved past, but he kept his attention forward. Gabriel stepped in beside him, matching his pace.
You came back.
Yeah. Didn't feel like pushing another run with something that's already giving up.
It was then that Sid clocked what Gabriel was wearing and couldn't hide his wide eyes. It was some sort of glittering top paired with even tighter commando-style pants and what looked to be knee boots. A pair of grenades was fastened to the front of his tactical belt, and Sid vaguely guessed what they were supposed to represent, given where they sat over his groin. After a brief recovery, Sid unslung the PDW and handed it over. Gabriel checked it quickly.
You've been stretching this little bad boy longer than you should have.
It's still fired.
They moved deeper into the space where the traffic thinned. Side Street stood off to the side, coat still on, his ever-present toy dog, Lady Snowflake, resting in one arm, while he finished a quiet exchange with another buyer. He glanced over just long enough to acknowledge Sid before returning to it. Gabriel reached under the table and pulled out a case that hadn't been part of the front display, setting it down and opening it without ceremony.
That's not the same thing as working when it needs to work. Mr.
Sid. Name's Sid.
Okay, Sid. Well, I'm Gabriel. And this is my gorgeous husband, Side Street. We run this part of town.
Although Sid had seen both men on feeds before, he didn't let it show. Coming off like a fan was a fast way to get prices pushed up. Side Street rapped with the other buyer and turned to him. Sid gave a brief, awkward nod, then let his attention fall to the open case instead. The PDW inside looked newer than the one he'd been dragging around. Different build, better made, not some cheap knockoff.
What am I looking at?
Something that does what you expect it to do when it needs to.
Sid picked it up and checked the balance, then cycled the action.
Okay. So what's wrong with it?
Nothing. That's why it's not out front.
How far can I push it?
Far enough for what you're doing, scabby boy. As long as you don't treat it like the last one.
And if I do?
Then you'll be right back here with the same problem.
A second buyer in a shimmering visor leaned in briefly.
That one's solid piece.
When the buyer lingered and stared a little too long, Side Street had one of the handlers usher the man off towards some other weapons.
Not bad.
Gabriel leaned in and flashed an impish smirk.
Oh, please. You look like you want to pose in the mirror with it.
Now where would I find...
Sid paused. Mirrors lined the walls. He hadn't noticed them before. Buyers stood in them now, turning, posing with weapons and gear like they were already theirs. Side Street caught it immediately.
You didn't spend any time out front.
Didn't need to.
Good. That part's for people who want to be seen making decisions.
I'm actually not trying to be seen at all.
Then you're standing in the right place.
Gabriel gave the price low and direct. Sid glanced once toward the entrance, where the line had started to stack up near the access point. People getting held longer than they should have been.
You see that?
Yeah, they're holding people at the entry.
Backing it up before they get through.
That's new.
A brief pause followed as Sid's brow furrowed.
I'll take it.
Gabriel slid several mags across.
Free of charge. Keep her fed.
I will.
Sid secured the weapon without looking back toward the runway. The noise out front carried differently now, voices catching and stopping instead of passing through.
Don't come back with the same problem.
Yeah, I'll try not to.
Sid took one last glance at Gabriel's getup, still trying to figure out how any of it made sense. Glitter catching the light off the top, grenades sitting right over his groin like that was part of the design.
By the way, that can't be practical. In this life, or any other.
Before waiting for Gabriel's sassy retort, Sid cut through the back, the same service route he'd come in through. Past the tables, past the curtain line, through the service access that didn't have anyone on it. By the time he reached the outer corridor, the sound from the entrance had changed into something else entirely. By the time Sid stepped back out onto the platform, the change wasn't subtle anymore. The boarding area had drawn in, not blocked outright, but controlled. Several Fallout gangers stood near the entry point, watching people pass. Sid watched the first ganger step up, a goateed menace in a black and red sweatsuit. Two others drifted in behind him, spreading out around Sid. Knives showed at their waists. One had a cheap pistol tucked low.
You just come out of 47?
Yup.
Pick something up.
Handled what I needed to.
Let's see it.
Yeah, that's not happening.
The moment stretched.
He's good.
Sid turned as an athletic man stepped into the space like he owned it, both hands resting on the grips of twin auto pistols tucked into his front waistband. Rook's colors caught just enough light to read. Dark green cut with orange tags that marked him before anyone needed to ask. Hood legends. Sid had seen the craggy, handsome features before, but couldn't place them.
You vouching?
I sure am.
The goateed ganger took a step back. Sid felt the change in the space. He stayed where he was, reading it.
Then move through. Hurry up.
Sid stepped past them toward the J-10 rolling in. Rook fell in beside him. Then it clicked. The stranger used to go by another name. Something normal sounding.
Didn't know you were tied in like that.
Not really tied. I'm just not worth the trouble right now.
They moved further down the platform.
The Fallouts. They're pushing lines across sectors, faster than anyone expected.
Yeah, feels like it.
They're about to wild out. Probably an expansion.
Then that's gonna get ugly.
It already is.
Rook glanced ahead, then back.
You should come by, catch up. Sid?
Okay, Mark.
It's Rook now.
They were about to exchange info when Sid's wristpad flickered out again. He swore under his breath, reached into his jacket, and pulled out the old street link. It took a second to boot, then gave off that same old modem whine he hated. They traded contacts. Then Sid stepped onto the J-10.
Don't wait too long.
You betcha, Rook.
They split as the next wave of movement came through. The platform kept functioning, but the way it held people had changed, and once that kind of shift started, it didn't usually stop.